And viewers, we are continuing, of course, in that same vein of talking about Carnival. Our conversation this morning would start with the security of Carnival and how do things go on the road in terms of organization and making sure things are safe so that people can enjoy themselves without any worries. Well, we are being joined this morning by ACP Collis Hazel, who was also the goal commander for the Tobago Carnival events for this year. Good morning and welcome to you.
Hi, good morning, Kandace. Good morning, Tobago, and good morning to all the viewers that are looking to this program this morning.
All right. So, from your perspective as the goal commander and the one in charge and making sure everything was safe, was it safe? Did we have an incident-free carnival?
So I can say with all assurance that the carnival was indeed the safest carnival that has taken place in Trinidad and Tobago. I can safely say that this is the last carnival in the Carnival of the Caribbean and the other regions that other parts of the world that celebrates Carnival. So we are ending this Carnival in with a level of safety, and I'm certain that that is good for the trajectory of going forward for Carnival 2024 in the National Carnival celebrations.
All right. So, just give us an idea of, just what it took in terms of the organization of Carnival, because there was something done a little bit differently this year, of course, led by yourself in terms of making sure that you met with the stakeholders and so on. So, just give us a little synopsis.
Um, that's Candice, yes. They definitely, if you're doing something over and over, you ought to be able to explore what you're doing and examine it in every way and to see how it's working and evaluate it. And this year, the strategy that we would have adopted is one in which we understand who we are working for and have a baseline understanding of how things are to be successful. So from the onset, the police took the opportunity of ensuring that we are responsible for the safety of all within the celebration. In so doing, one has to understand what is Carnival. Carnival for us is an opportunity for revelry of the culture of a people working together on a stage and a theatrical platform. And therefore, critical among that is the whole idea of safety and security of persons. People want to feel safe. People want to enjoy with a level of safety. So our approach, first of all, was to meet with all concerns. And in that those stakeholder meetings, we focus our attention to listen to the concern of the people, listen to the organizers, listen to the persons who are responsible for staging the carnival. So we met with our promoters, we met with our band leaders association, we met with the churches who have been involved, we met with the other members of the arms of security and hear their concerns in how it will impact them in some way that we can be able to treat with this issue. But critical among that is for us to understand that with that of staging this event, there were some identified risks that were associated with this. And if we are talking security and safety, we ought to ensure that we focus our attention primarily on how are we able to manage to a lesson to reduce and to mitigate those risks that will affect the functioning of the carnival. And significantly, that was the responsibility that the police and all its stakeholders working with were involved in. And how did we do that? In our stakeholder meetings, we would have identified those risks and we looked at an opportunity of how we can mitigate those risks through establishing a tabletop meeting where we identify scenarios that would definitely, we feel that is most likely to happen. and how train everyone in terms of what would be our response. How would we treat with that? And Kandace, may I say to you and the rest of Tobago, having people like Alan Stewart, I mean, and a person with all respect in terms of dealing with safety and security, and the whole team of persons around you. You had outside of TEMA, you had the fire services, you have the members of the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Service, my other police colleagues from the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, you had the Port Authority, you had the Airport Authority, you had WASA, you had TNTech, and I want to shout out here TNTech. TNTech spent the entire operational period in the Joint Operation Command Center with us, just to make sure that there was power, and of course, carry lines and all of that throughout. We want to thank TSTT. While we sat at the Joint Operation Command Center, we were able to see everything live and proper footage coming from those cameras. So thanks to TSTT, thanks to Digicel and all the players who were involved in treating with that. Even customs and excise. All these players played a pivotal role in ensuring that should something happen on the day in our joint command, we don't have to be run around the road. The think tank was right around the table where we could have analyze, validate, and to make sure that we put a strategy in place that can bring forward the success of the people. And that is what significantly we have been managing over this period to make sure that things work. And I can say from all assurances that things really work the way we wanted to. I think the message was sent because inside of all of this, there is what we call an opportunity to treat, where quite rightly, Carnival has an economic value. And therefore, people who want to commit crime will find an opportunity even to come inside here, not to jump and revel and have a good time, but basically to come in to see how we can rob, how we can create offense. And so our strategic patrols that we would have been earmarking, implementing all the time, our exercises, that our lockdown exercises before, in terms of locking down the city, before and ensuring that we do raids and searches in the beginning, making sure that no one come into the venue with knives and cutlasses and guns and other weapons, was strategic in terms of ensuring that the safety existed. So our appeal outside there for the persons who were bent on doing crime, I think they listened the warning and they abided, so that we did not have the opportunity in terms of to be affected by those in terms of crime. And of course, one has to commend the masqueraders, one has to commend the spectators, one has to commend those persons who were involved in the crime. The Tobago House of Assembly under the Secretary, Ms. Tasha Boris, in terms of continue to work with us and providing the support and the resources for national security to ensure that we were successful.
Now, what about in terms of, just the reception on the day itself, or on the days, I should say, amongst the stakeholders? I know we had a conversation before, and there were some comments that you got from them. So I just want to share, what was the feeling like from them?
Okay, so basically, one of my focus in terms of is to hear the views, to get the feedback as well from the people. And hence the reason I took the opportunity on Carnival Day to walk the street, to patrol the street, and to meet the spectators, meet the persons involved. And the response in terms of what we are receiving, one is to provide what I would call police legitimacy and visibility. Meeting all and sundry, the vendors, the masqueraders, the normal on-viewers, everyone, and to hear their view. And basically that went along with hearing a level of congratulations. The police, the arms, the protective services were doing, and the defense force, we were doing our work. People felt comfortable. People felt safe. People felt secure. There was this level of, after 7, that you had people still clad in costumes outside there, jumping up in times of Scarborough. It was something that we welcomed. I think one of the change that definitely we had to make when we look at it was to ensure that no way was I prepared to ensure that Carnival finished at 6 o'clock in town. Come on, we now come out. How can we think about bringing into a show at 6 o'clock? And therefore, if we want persons to properly enjoy the time and have a good time in a safe, we need to understand who we are dealing with. And hence the reason you didn't anger the population by just making them feel that, okay, well, we must we cut off the highway at this time and we shut down the function. That does not satisfy it. I think people, and that's what we taught about, listening to the people and getting an understanding of who are our clients and how can we best serve them. So it's not about exercising a level of power by not listening to your audience. The audience is listening to your clients. And hence the reason why we got that respect. Because Carnival essentially manage behaviors. You are managing behaviors of people. And if we go back to the whole theory of from the behavioral school of psychology, behavior breeds behavior. And if you are able to allow people to express themselves in a way in which they can be satisfied and conform with the elements of the law, they will comply. And therefore, there is no need for you to go there and with a heavy hand policing methods of trying to ensure that you are telling, don't do this and don't do that. It is about how you treat the people. You will get that response from them. Respect is earned, and we ought to be able to show that. So what we have brought on board is a new level of policing, a policing that talks about community and a stakeholder engagement, in which we are prepared to listen to the members of the community. And what our plan focus on is what we call CEPTED, crime through environmental design, an opportunity where we explore the environment, see who are our targets, see who are the people, and work with the people. And that was what brought that success in terms of meeting out with our stakeholders, engaging them, and getting a clearer understanding of how we can police this island without any level of difficulty that we could not manage.
Now, what about in terms of just some of the minor things during the carnival event? I mean, I noticed, for instance, that there was still a lot of glass bottles around, even though we were not supposed to have glass bottles within the events.
I think the idea is one has to be realistic in terms of how we treat with that. And while the ban on glass bottles were there, one has to understand that some of the product, we met with Karim, and we met with who has most of the bottle beverage. We had reached out to Angostura as well. And basically, when you are doing these proclamations and you are making these regulations, so to speak, one has to understand in the context of which we're doing it. Within Trinidad and Tobago, in the space of Trinidad and Tobago, not all these produce are done in plastic. We ourselves are trying to get away from plastic. So at one hand, we are telling them no glass bottles, but yet still we don't want plastic in order to pollute our environment. What the suppliers did for us is that they reduce, Carib particularly, they reduce the supply that came to Tobago and provide most tin products. However, Angostura did not have that amount of their products that comes within plastic or tins. And therefore, in somehow or the other, you would have found that you would have had some Angostura bottles and other products coming in. I think that the idea is that the citizens manage themselves well in terms of it, because really the ban is not to be punitive. It is just to ensure that we lessen the opportunity of the risk where people can pelt a bottle and injure someone. And that's the whole thing behind it. How do we manage all these bottles in the space which the bottle becomes a weapon? And we are trying to reduce weapon from within this space of operation. So I think I still would want to say thank you to the consumers who, at the end of the day, did not dispose them in properly and still utilize the cups and glasses and so forth. And we did not have any issue where bottle was a challenge to national security.
Okay, and then what about in terms of, just the police presence itself during the carnival events? There were some complaints that the police vehicles driving through the crowd was not always the best decision, at least in their view. What would you say to that?
The road made to walk on Carnival Day. And therefore, that police visibility and legitimacy of which I speak, one would want to choose what's the best mode of transportation in terms of treating with that. The road is already small. However, there was some idea that we utilize an opportunity where we had to refresh our officers, the whole security apparatus on Carnival. So at some point in time, we had to utilize our vehicles in order to take refreshment, take water, take Lucozade, take the different beverages for our officers in order to refresh them, because they were on the route for in the excess of 6 hours. So you had to find, at some point in time, you will find vehicles, marked and unmarked vehicles going in there in order to treat with our officers. And of course, the element, we somehow or the other, the patrols were on foot, but that I know that disruption clearly would have offended persons. But like anything else, you still had an opportunity to enjoy themselves.
And there was also a concern raised by the president of Pan Tobago, Ms. Beverly Ramsey Moore, in regards to the police presence that was not there for the pan and powder. And there was some, I'm not sure if there's been miscommunication or so on, but would you be able to just give a perspective on what really happened and why the streets were not blocked off in a way that Pan Tobago would have preferred?
All right. So I would not say that the police was not there for the Pan Tobago. The police was not there the time that Pan Tobago in order to begin the show. And the show of itself was hindered by a heavy downpour of rain. But like anything else, I too would want to see that a tremendous amount of effort was made on my part and on the division's part in order to secure last minute, to secure policing for that event. The fact is that we had so many activities pre-carnival during the week. And of course, even leading up to that day, we had a high volume of police officers to manage other events. And so that hindered the opportunity of us finding adequate police officers to start that show. May I say to you, this was a show that the police officers was not detailed to perform the duty as a normal duty. This is what is considered an extra duty. Extra duty can only be worked by off-duty police officers. We do not put police officers who are, we cannot put police officers who are on active duty, because this is actually something that has to be paid for outside of their normal earnings. And of course, so we are balancing the idea of persons coming forward in order to treat with that. And that is where we had the challenge based on the volume of activities that we had to supply officers. Other officers preferred to operate in for other events, and that was a challenge. But I must say it to my good friend Beverly Ramsey Moore that it was not with any intent that, the police seems to be unpatriotic. We are part of Pan Tobago. the police, if you look in the competition, you'll see where we won in the competitions in Port of Spain. The Police Youth Club have police. We have bands. Into my own Police Youth Club in Roxborough is a part of Trinbago with our steel band. So we understand the culture. We understand in terms of working with that area. But clearly, I would say that that is one of the areas we are going to pay attention to next year. In terms of my own estimation of it, is that I feel confident that perhaps that pan activity can now be joined with the activity on the Saturday night that can give more an opportunity for more an activity that would allow more participation on the street. Because what you want in the street theater is a constant flow of bands and so coming forth. You don't want to be there looking 1 hour pass and you had some bands going up and then the next or you're waiting in a lull. So perhaps that activity may very well work well on the Saturday night in town, joining with the night mass so that we have sufficient things on the road, because remember, we have to utilize the security well.
Certainly.
We have to be able to utilize the security well, and I think in that way it will lessen the costs on the organizers as well in terms of treating with it. So it may be of good use that while we're stretching out the event, we can have compacted event that can see people get a better viewage. Because certainly you as a television carrier, you don't want to know that you don't have anything to fill that lull.
No, we don't like lulls.
You do, certainly not.
Certainly not. All right, I want to thank you, but we're not quite done with ACP Collis Hazel yet. So we're going to take a quick break and be right back. So please don't go anywhere.
Good morning, Tobago.
Well, welcome back to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Update, viewers. We are continuing our conversations this morning with ACP Collis Hazel as we talk about the Tobago Carnival weekend. And of course, I mean, Mr. Hazel, ACP Hazel was also the gold commander, the one that was in charge of planning and making sure that all the stakeholders were properly engaged so that, you know, we could have the best system in place for hosting Tobago Carnival. Now, I also want to speak about just the wrecking part of things from the police. And I know that there were some vehicles wrecked on Juve morning and so on. So I just want to just address, you know, what happened. And there were some changes made to the wrecking system. So tell us a little about that.
Okay, so wrecking is part of the traffic apparatus in order to deal with persons who will not comply in terms of the road safety regulations that we have out there. We did have, I think my records show that we wrecked over 7 vehicles during that Carnival Juve morning celebration. But clearly it was an opportunity where there were errant drivers who were not abiding, and therefore one of the areas, remember we had that new route that takes us onto Orange Hill way up. And that was an area where I looked at it in if a vehicle was not properly leave it unattended on that road, the traffic congestion would have been impacting all around. So we had to treat with that with perhaps some people who left their vehicles there for over a long, considerable time to remove them to have traffic flowing properly. However, we knew on Carnival Saturday, Sunday in particular, that we could not operate the wrecker because of the situation in which we were operating with. So we will allow people some level of leniency to make sure that they park and get in, because Scarborough does not have all the car parks in order to hold those cars. However, we had made arrangement and had patrols even at the Dwight York Stadium and of course the parade grounds so that people can park, and we had patrol our cars to take secure those, but those weren't utilized. But I must say it is all about the whole idea of policing the road and ensuring that people comply. This was another show of professionalism by our citizens, because we did not encounter any um, road traffic accidents of that nature. And of course, our road traffic officers were outside there doing breathalyzers. And we did have, very early in the morning, we got a person who was beyond the limit in weighing, exceeding the breath test. And that person was arrested and charged in terms of treating with that. But all in all, it was geared towards understanding the whole understanding the dynamics in which we are working with, understanding the whole event and how we police and manage the event.
All right. And then, of course, did we have a lot of roadblocks and so on during the carnival season? What can you tell us in terms of, tickets, arrests that were made, and that sort of thing?
Okay, so Kandace, that was a strategy that, of course, one looked at in terms of ensuring that we weed out the elements that can later come as a surprise to us. So those roadblocks were strategically organized to ensure that all in and around Scarborough, we block every entrance of persons getting in. So if you were coming into Scarborough, we had to sanitize the area. And sanitize the area, we were looking for persons. We seized several knives, ice picks, cutlasses, all of that people were carrying in their vehicles. And therefore, that gave us the opportunity to ensure that the Juve remained safe. And so that persons who had a legitimate reason, perhaps you probably may have been a laborer, and you forget your cutlass in your trunk or something like that. It was labeled and tagged, and therefore you could have come back to it. But clearly, we weren't allowing any weapon. So that is why we strategically allow those raids at the perimeter of entrance to Scarborough to ensure that we create that level of safety for persons not getting into the capital in order to treat with punks persons with those weapons.
All right, great. And at the end of it all, just looking back, like how do you feel about just the way that everything went, and how can your strategies combine with just Tobago's overall marketing drive for tourism?
Thank you. And really and truly, I must say to you that this plan is a plan that we just didn't wake up and just jump out there in terms of our policing. Our policing opportunity under our leader, our astute leader, Commissioner Earl Christopher, is that in every event like this, we organize, there is a goal commander that is appointed, and under the goal commander, there are teams in terms of execution. So the goal commander will go out and work. But the goal commander has a responsibility of providing the commissioner with a plan, and so that we put a public safety and security operation plan in place. This plan had to be approved by the executive of the T.T.P.S, and clearly this was the plan of our Tobago plan. But within this plan, we were cognizant of the view that what Carnival meant to Tobago, what this other tourism product meant to the island of Tobago. And we carefully analyze and we look back at what happened in the past. So we explore the whole idea, evaluation coming out of what was known Tobago Fest. And we realized that Tobago Fest came and it was marred with violence. And therefore, who was responsible for violence? The police. They are responsible for making people safe. So that is why we took it from the onset, said to the secretary, We are taking charge of this carnival and this carnival security. So we must not be blamed at the end of the day. So we held to that responsibility in a high order. Outside of that, we understand how important it is to this small tourism industry that we maintain. If anyone coming in here as an assistant commissioner of police to manage this island and don't have a clear understanding of the impact of crime and criminality on this volatile tourism industry, you are not ready for this job. And clearly, as a Tobagonian, I understand clearly how these issues can affect our industry. So we planned with that, with a focus of understanding that we need to make sure that safety was paramount for everyone. Because you had tourists coming into this island, and at the end of the day, if we had to sell our carnival, if we had to ensure that we remain an island to be reckoned with in terms of what we produce, safety becomes the first priority. And hence the reason I echoed that. And we did not just look at that. We, in our assimilation plan for the carnival, we assimilated an exercise that gave an undertaking that should something happen to a tourist during carnival, how the responders, how the security apparatus will treat with that. And we were able to work with that well, and we reach out for persons to understand all of that. Even I had the opportunity to train the road marshals on the road, so that we did not left no stone unturned in terms of dealing with the idea that our product of security needed to be, or the machinery needed to be well oiled, so that we treat with each and every one. We went as far as we had working with the public health,
Yes.
because food poisoning is critical. So
Certainly.
we had our food service officers, we had meeting with them, they were working with the team outside it, so that we had everything to looking at mitigating all the risk factors. So I want to say to us now, and the police in this era of policing, it's not a police that just come and talk about extra duty and how much you will put out outside.
Yeah.
It's a police who understands the event and work with the organizers of the event to ensure that there is a win-win. A win-win of the event is to ensure that safety is paramount, to bring everybody on board and to make sure that the events become a success.
All right, well, thank you so much, ACP Collis Hazel, for your work, first of all, and then, of course, for you being here this morning and for giving us a synopsis as to what happened and how the operations worked.
Thank you very much, and it is a pleasure always that I share the information, and I look forward for us continuing that trajectory, a safe carnival, but we can continue with a safe Tobago as well. Have a pleasant morning all.
All right, great. Well, viewers, we're not quite done yet with GMT, so please don't go anywhere. We'll be back after this short break.
Rise up to a brand new dawning.